What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Faithful Fanatics. We are Dylan Davis and Matt McGinty. Give us a follow on Twitter at DylanJD98 and at Matt_McGinty. The Faithful Fanatics are brought to you by DSM Media. So, guys, if you're new to the channel, please go subscribe on our YouTube channel and please give us a follow on Twitter at DSM_media. And today we are joined by yours truly.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Brock Landis. Give him a follow on Twitter at LandisBrock. What is going on, my man?
I'm just glad to be here, boys. Look, I'm messing with the rebrand. I like the rebrand. Do something major, tap in. I like it. I like what we got going on over here. I'm proud of you, boys. I'm rocking with you. So anybody following me, if you're watching this live stream on Twitter or wherever it ends up afterwards, go give both of them a follow. And on DSM, their platform, are doing something major. Look, I appreciate you, boys. Thank you.
We're just trying to stay solid, my dude. That's all we're trying to do is stay up to speed with you.
You might be the last of a dying breed then, because I've known a lot of people that said the same thing that unfortunately in the past 2-3 months would negate that. So I appreciate you guys doing what you're doing. And like you said, trying to stay solid. Scotty, too. What's going on, dog? I appreciate you as well, Scotty. We'll link up in a couple of weeks.
So we are streaming to you guys live through DSM Media's Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. But we're on everything. We're on Twitch. We're on freaking TikTok, so go give us a follow on every social media platform there is. And today, guys, I don't got an agenda. I don't got a list. I don't got nothing. We are just going to chop it up with Brock. We're going to talk NBA free agency. We're going to talk Sixers offseason, what they've done, what they haven't done, what we want them to do, what we think is going to happen. Fan reaction. Are they overreacting? Are they underreacting? How, everything. So let's just get right into it. Me and Gint talked about it yesterday a little bit, but so Brock, I want to throw it to you first, but just NBA free agency as a whole, who were kind of, we'll go over the winners and losers, but let's start with the major winners early on in free agency this summer. Who stands out to you in the NBA as winners of the free agency market early?
Well, you probably have to be blind if the Lakers didn't stand out to you. I mean, the Lakers somehow managed to get every single free agent possible. And I'm convinced that salary cap and money and contracts just aren't real. It's just a figment of our imagination because, look, this Lakers team gets Dennis Schroeder. They get Montrezl Harrell, KCP's there, Kyle Kuzma there. They've already got a loaded roster. And LeBron is notorious for doing this. LeBron wins. He wins a lot. When he doesn't win, let's take it back to the drawing board and let's go win again. So LeBron, at his age, he's cognizant that, okay, maybe I probably only have 3-4 more years, compete at a high level, potentially 5, but the window to win a championship is probably capped at 5-6 years. So what do the Lakers do? They take it back to the drawing board, they reconstruct their roster, and they get everybody under the sun. You get Wayne Ellington, you get Kendrick Nunn, you get Malik Monk, who's 23 years old, 2 years older than me, on a veteran's minimum. Veterans minimum, 23 years old. That doesn't sound right. Okay, so those are plenty of 38, 40% plus three-point shooters. You get Trevor Ariza, so you get a point of attack wing defender who may be past his prime, but nonetheless a good body to bring off the bench. They lose Caruso because they can't pay him, but then pay THT, so you get some youth, you get some flashiness. Dwight Howard signs back with the Los Angeles Lakers, and if it's anything like his role in Philly, he should thrive out in LA. They trade for Russell Westbrook, and that trade was, I guess, in hindsight, fair, but just the fact that you had a Hall of Famer to 2 Hall of Famers on that.
It wasn't fair, bro.
It's ridiculous.
You're missing one, bro.
You could keep going. Who
Melo?
Carmelo Anthony, the OG, the big unk of the NBA. I'm happy for Carmelo because I do want to see Carmelo win, and I'm glad he could probably do that with his counterpart from the 2003 draft, and Melo deserves that. But look, you just counted what, eight guys, 8 players, 7 or 8 players on your finger right there that you counted in what?
Like they can't keep everybody, bro.
A 48-hour, 72-hour period, and LeBron James is the longest tenured Laker on the Lakers. He's been there for 3 years. So think about that. This is what LeBron does. He ravages rosters, but he wins. So ultimately, I'm not a LeBron hater. I'm not with the LeBron discourse, but he's got to pay for his sins. He's got to atone for his sins and for what he did to the NBA. We're living in this player empowerment era where it's fantastic that the players can have a say in what management does, trading for players, attracting players, tampering without getting caught, things like that. I love the player empowerment era, okay? but LeBron's got to pay for his sins. I need Steph Curry and his boys out in Golden State, the Bay Area, to drop LeBron James off. I need Dame, if he stays in Portland, to drop LeBron. I don't care who's got to do it, but someone's got to top the Lakers in the Western Conference because LeBron's got to pay for his sins. He's the best GM in basketball, and he plays. He's on the court, and he's the best GM in basketball.
So let me just cut in real quick because I'm going to ask you guys a question. Because obviously on paper they were the winners. It's not close, like Brock said. You have to be blind to see it. But every single guy you named, Wayne Ellington, was in the rotation last year. They signed Kent Bazemore, was in the rotation in Golden State. Trevor Ariza in the rotation. Carmelo Anthony in the rotation. All of these guys played where they just were. Dwight Howard was a backup center where he was. And I don't know what they're going to do with Marc Gasol and what they're going to do with Dwight Howard because they said that when they got Russell Westbrook, they convinced AD is going to play a lot of the five. But all of these guys they signed, even Taylor Horton-Tucker, played last year. So someone's not going to play. It's physically impossible.
Multiple people aren't going to play, bro.
People aren't going to play. So now you get into the issue of could it be a problem internally at the team?
So here's what I think. The Lakers' biggest competition is their health on paper. Now, of course, the product they put in the court can be completely different than what we anticipate 2-3 months before the season actually starts. But I think their biggest competitor would be their health. But I think each player signing here for the vet minimum, for the low, indicates that they're willing to take on whatever role they have to play to win. And I mean, look at Malik Monk, for example. I said 23 years old, vet minimum. No 23-year-old hooper is signing for the vet minimum. Kendrick Nunn got criminally underpaid. Or Kendrick Nunn, I don't know if I mispronounced that. I might be bugging. But so I say that to say this. Guys are going to L.A. for one specific reason. They know where they need to go to get a ring. And LeBron's going to put them on game. So regardless of if they win a ring or not, they're intertwined in that NBA fraternity, that NBA brotherhood with the top dog, LeBron, with the top agent, Rich Paul, forever. And LeBron has some of the most iconic moments in the NBA. Like, I think back to LeBron and AD smoking the cigar after they won the chip in the locker room. Iconic. Like, that picture will be framed. That GIF will be used forever, right? So players might just be going to L.A. to go to L.A. We get to go to the Lakers. We have the highest likelihood and highest probability to win the NBA championship. Regardless of if we don't play or not, we get to suit up and sit next to LeBron or get a courtside view of LeBron, the arguable GOAT, every single night. So I think like a player, Malik Monk, 23 years old, signing the vet minimum, indicates to me that whoever went to the Lakers is going there for one specific reason. And if they have to take on a lesser role, so be it. But it could also be a blessing in disguise too, right? Like, I say health is their biggest competitor. You don't know if LeBron, if AD, if Westbrook are making it through a full 82-game season. So maybe they can load manage a little better, and that gives a guy like Wayne Ellington or Trevor Ariza or Carmelo more opportunities than they might have had in Portland or they would have had in Detroit.
That's exactly – go ahead again.
Yeah, because let me ask you this. So you bring up Malik Monk, young, Kendrick Nunn, young, very young guys, signing for grossly underpaid contracts. Mm-hmm. Now, when the going gets tough in the playoffs, let's say things get a little tough and obviously rotation's going to cut down. Do you think LeBron's going to point at his banana boat boy, Carmelo Anthony, Trevor Ariza, who's done it before, or these guys are signing to vet minimums this young to go win? Like Malik Monk and Kendrick Nunn, I feel like are putting a lot of chips on the table here in terms of how much they'll play in the NBA post this year. I think this year is really important for those two guys. And what if they're the two that get cut out of the rotation?
Go ahead, Dylan, because I know you wanted to say something.
So I hear what you're saying, Gint. They're so young. It's like it's not the Melo situation where they're going there to give themselves the best chance of winning a ring. Like you wouldn't think that, and you're right. Like if they're not being displayed, if they're not on display, if they're not playing every night or close to it or playing in the playoffs, how are they going to go get their bag the following year when they need to? So I get your point there, but at the same time, I don't know what the reasoning behind them is. My thing with LeBron, what Brock had wrapped up saying, I agree 110% with, because what did we watch this year? LeBron knows at what stage of his career he's in, at what age he's in. He knows that Anthony Davis, what he's in, what he deals with injury-wise. What did we see last year? Both them battled injuries. They got it to a play-in tournament, and it didn't cut it, right? Adding all these pieces allows for injuries with LeBron and AD, allows for load management for LeBron and AD, but to still get a top 6 seed with all this talent he surrounded himself with, to where him and AD can be fresh in a postseason, not have to worry about a 1-game loss play-in tournament. And I just think that's why he's so damn savvy. He is the best GM in the league, but it pisses me off.
It's a really unique situation because as much as you hate it, you also love it. Like next season's going to be lit regardless. And I think what's really cool about this Lakers situation, and like I said, as much as I hate it, there are some positives because this team, if they stay healthy, it's going to be something like we've never seen before. It's literally a Toon squad. It's a Space Jam squad, right? The thing that's cool is they've addressed almost every single hole from last season. So you got Dennis Schroeder. You need a point guard with at least a better shot selection than his. They get Russell Westbrook, who, regardless of how you feel about his mid-range shooting or his three-point shooting, Russell Westbrook is going to be a Hall of Fame point guard. And when all said and done, he'll be arguably a top 5, if not top 3 point guard to ever play the game, right? So you kind of addressed the point guard situation, but I mean, you've got Malik Monk, 23 years old on a vet minimum. You've got Kendrick Nunn, criminally underpaid. You got 4 guys that shot 38% plus from beyond the arc last year. So LeBron got all of his shooters. You keep some defense intact by getting Dwight Howard and Trevor Ariza. So I just think the Lakers are going to be really fun to watch. But, I mean, here's the thing about a player like Malik Monk, though. I think he's in a double down and bet on yourself situation. The same with Kendrick Nunn. Because there's no player LeBron can't get bagged up. Timothy Mozgov got $64 million after LeBron. Kevin Love got a nasty contract. Matt Dellavedova got a bag. Alex Caruso just got $35 million. So I say that to say this. Malik Monk is going on the vet minimum. At the very least, compete for a championship, play with LeBron. But at the very best, he actually plays. He actually contributes. And then, hey, he's 24 years old. He's got a ring, potentially. And now a real lucrative contract. It can't get any cheaper than the vet minimum, though. So, yeah, I'm sure he could have signed somewhere a 2-year, 3-year deal, maybe $14 million altogether. But I think this is the ultimate bet on yourself and double down situation where you go to L.A. At the very worst, cool, you get to compete for a chip. And at the very best, he gets a lucrative contract and actually competes on this Lakers squad.
All right, before I get to one of the comments and a question, transitioning to the Eastern Conference, what do you say to the people that are doubting the Lakers' big 3 that they've built with the Russell Westbrook trade? Like, people, I laugh at it too. Like, it's gonna work. It's LeBron James. It's gonna work. But there are people, oh, look at the spacing, blah, 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 blah. It's not gonna work. It's too many alpha dogs. Russ isn't gonna want to take a back seat. Brock, what do you say to the people that think it's not gonna work in LA?
Now, those question marks are real things, but
Sure,
they're real things with teams that have guys that are 22, 23 years old, that haven't played together before, that have no understanding of each other's games, that have never played with other superstars. But look, LeBron and AD have played together. They won a chip together. They know what's required of both of them and their teammates to win a championship. So they're not bringing an undervalued point guard. They're not bringing a guy looking to rejuvenate his career. It's Russell Westbrook. And Russell Westbrook has also played with a laundry list of superstars too. So ultimately, all it's really going to take is these 3 guys getting in a group chat with each other, having a conversation with each other among some cigar smoke and some wine at LeBron's crib on Taco Tuesday, saying, look, this is what we need out of you to win. This is what we need out of you to win. This is what – and those conversations are just going to continue. So I think mentally, if they have an understanding of what they've got to do, they're going to be able to produce on the court. Now, the spacing stuff could be an issue because you're playing with Russell Westbrook. Anthony Davis, if he doesn't play center, means you have to have Dwight out there or Marcus Sol out there, maybe THT. Like, the combinations are a little clunky, but everything the Lakers have addressed in free agency has kind of eased those concerns.
Exactly.
Because they got all the shooting they needed.
Right. Because, those 3 are obviously going to start the games together. They're obviously going to have at least 2 shooters on the floor with them. They're going to finish games. I get all that. But think about the staggering of minutes you can now do with these 3 who can, LeBron and Russ can facilitate and be ball dominant with all the shooting you've now acquired to put around them. at the end of the second quarter, in the beginning and middle of the third quarter. Now, if you have Russ and AD on the floor, or if you have LeBron, on the bench, whatever the case may be, all right, well, now you got Russ leading the offense with 4 shooters around him, or 3 shooters and a big around him, or Russ and AD, or you know what I mean? So they can stagger these minutes on top of just having a big 3 that can do everything.
It's with those 3, it's almost like when you go to the park or you're in your local rec facility and football season's over and these physically gifted football players come in that play the game of basketball still, and they're just going to out physicality you in every way. You probably have the most physical guard in the NBA in Russell Westbrook, like maybe Drew Holiday's up there as well. And then you have the robot man himself, LeBron James, that is also physically gifted to beyond belief. And then Anthony Davis is who he is. So, like you said, there's question marks, but in the end, they're going to be too good in terms of skill. But what I'll say about this is, when Brock had mentioned LeBron always gets guys bags, which he has, and I think he gets a certain type of player a bag, and it's the ones you don't think really deserve it. And I could be wrong here, but the guys I feel like have not been that good with LeBron are guys like Malik Monk and Kendrick Nunn. Like when you saw when the Cavs made that deadline move, and they got Rodney Hood and Jordan Clarkson. Like those 2 did not look good in Cleveland. And so that's the only question marks. That's why I'm saying, like, I can't believe these dudes took a minimum and are putting all these chips on the table to do in 1 year, especially with who he just signed too. He signed so many vets, Ken Bazemore, Carmelo Anthony, Trevor Ariza. It's guys that all reliable, you know what I mean? So that's the only thing I'm really going to bring up about those 2.
Well, that's the funny part, because like, everything the Lakers have done is smart, and we've addressed all that. And like you're saying, Gint, that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work out, and it's going to be smart for some of the guys that have signed there. And I think that's it's going to end up happening. It's inevitable that it's going to happen to at least, I'm going to say at least 2 of the guys that signed there for cheap 1-year deals are not going to really see the floor this year. It's just, it can't happen. There's only so many guys in a rotation. Outside of who they're retaining, we just listed 8 to 9 guys they've added. That's not counting LeBron James, Anthony Davis, Marcus Gasol. They bring Dennis Schroeder, THT, like everything. That's all the guys they added. So at least 2 guys aren't going to see the floor really.
If they add Schroeder and Schroeder comes back and comes off the bench, like physically Nunn or Monk are going to be DNP coach's decision every single night. There's not enough. There's not enough minutes. It's a 48-minute game. They're not going to increase the time because the Lakers have 44 players that can play.
I don't think they're going to retain Schroeder. I think Schroeder will end up somewhere else. But I think these guys signed there under that impression. I really think that guys understand if they want to go win a chip, they know what they have to do. And they're going to take that role on regardless. One thing I will say, my concerns are less about like the spacing and more so about when Luka comes into town, when you got to go travel and play KD, who's the primary point of attack defender on them with your Russell Westbrook, LeBron, AD lineup. If you insert, let's say, Carmelo there, if you insert Monk there, if you insert Kendrick Nunn, whoever, who is the primary defender on offensive juggernauts that play the wing position or play the 3 or 4? And also, who's taking the last shot? Right? Like, is it AD? Is it a pull-up midi? Is it LeBron on a sidestep 3? Is it the Russell Westbrook mid-range? Who takes the last shot? But those are concerns that'll get, I'm sure, ironed out throughout an 82-game season.
Let me ask you, I know we're going to want to jump off the Lakers for 20 minutes in.
Pretty soon.
But I just lost my train of thought. Dude, how? It was I totally forgot. Oh, here you go. So a lot of these guys signed early. Like, they signed right away.
For sure.
Now, they probably signed in aspirations to play for a championship and knowing they'd be in the rotation.
Yeah, but what do you think they're thinking now?
More signed early. Now he's probably saying they signed him too, and him. Like, some of these guys had to have not known this was coming. That all these guys were coming. So it's going to be one of the weirdest things. Who knows? Maybe they start flipping these young guys for better players, but
they could.
It's going to be so interesting.
That's why LeBron has to atone. Steph has to make LeBron pay for this because he's been terrorizing the NBA with his phone calls and low key tampering for a decade.
On paper, this is, since I've been a basketball fan, this has to be the best roster ever.
Clay's got to be.
It could be.
Every single player
definitely could
that they've signed was a rotation player. I've never seen anything like that.
I'd bet a lot of money that Wayne Ellington is one of the two guys that I'm talking about that's not seeing the floor.
I think he's going to start.
It's a sniper. That's a sniper.
He shoots 42% from beyond.
I think Malik's surprisingly going to have a really good season. I have a lot of stock invested in Malik here. Kentucky ball player, knows how to play the game, good shooter. Got an opportunity to ball out last year, was in bad situations in Charlotte. I think it's a win-win situation for a guy like Malik, in my opinion. But look, we've been talking about the Lakers.
Yeah. So here's the issue, guys. We said before the show started. We said before the show started, we didn't want to go for 2-some hours like we have before. And here we are, 21 minutes in, and we're stuck on the Los Angeles Lakers. Let me transition. What's up, Gint?
Gint looks a little disrespected here.
LaMarcus Aldridge is now eyeing an NBA comeback.
Another piece for the Lakers. Great. There's the Lakers 4 alongside Anthony Davis. I'm happy for LaMarcus if that's true that he got his health situated. But if he goes to the Lakers, I mean, come on now. What are we doing here?
All right, so to transition we are the Phaithful Fanatics, so to bring it towards the Sixers. We're not getting into Sixers just yet. We're almost there, but to swing it back to the conference they play in, do you believe that the East contenders have so far improved their roster significantly or marginally?
What's the difference?
I can start. Well,
what's the difference between those two words?
Because there are people I know, for Scotty, I know he was upset, because direct competition to the Sixers are getting better and the Sixers aren't. And that's just kind of the Lakers. When I look at the Eastern Conference, the Bucks have done what? They've lost PJ Tucker. I think they brought back Bobby Portis for cheap. The Nets lost Jeff Green. Rodney Hood, okay.
And Sixers legend George Hill, too. Don't forget about the Bucks.
Sixer legend. The Nets have brought in Patty Mills 2 years, $12 million. That's a big signing, but that's about all they brought. They retained, Blake Griffin. That's all they've done. And then the Heat are the last contender, I'd say, that have gotten better. But I want to start there because the other two are small moves. We'll get to, if we want to touch on the Patty Mills, the Nets move, we can. But I want to start with the Miami Heat because people are, losing their minds over the Miami Heat doing what they're doing. Same thing with the Lakers. Well, if the Sixers are so cap strong, how are the Lakers signing everybody? How are the Heat extending Jimmy Butler, giving Duncan Robinson all this money, going out and doing a sign and trade for Kyle Lowry for $30 million a pop for 3 years? And that's where I want to start. What do you guys think of this Heat team? For this year, I get it. I love it. I think they're going to be a top 3 to 4 team in the Eastern Conference and contending again. But as far as long term, I don't understand the concept here. You just signed Kyle Lowry's 36, 37 years old. You just signed him to a 3-year deal, giving him $30 million a pop. Jimmy Butler is going to be close to 40 years old in his late 30s. Yeah, by the time that extension runs out. For this year, maybe even next year, I get it. But outside of that, I think they're setting themselves up for a complete kind of restart where they're left with Duncan Robinson and Tyler Hero.
Go ahead, Gint.
So
yeah, he looks eager.
Yeah,
I know how he feels about Kyle Lowry.
So how they did it, one is Pat Riley. We just mentioned LeBron as the best GM in the NBA, and Pat Riley's probably 1B, right?
Well, that's what makes it crazy because Pat Riley's a real GM.
Yeah.
So he's the 1B to a guy that's playing.
I absolutely love what they did in terms of contending right now. They got Kyle Lowry, obviously. They got PJ Tucker, and then they got Markieff Morris with that as well.
I forgot about that. Sorry. Yeah.
Who's another solid piece to have. When the big three happened with Bosh, Wade, LeBron, I think everyone post that assumed the Heat are going to be bad for years, and they found a way to turn it around quick too. They have never been a horrible team. They've never been a top 5 team in the lottery, I don't believe, since that time. So the turnover is quick with Pat Riley. But for them right now, I really like what they did. I think the Victor Oladipo move's huge as well. Some people think he's cooked. I still think he has a little bit left in the tank, especially as a bench player in the NBA. Because obviously you're going to start Lowry, you're going to start Duncan Robinson, you're going to start Jimmy, PJ Tucker, and bam. And then your second unit's not in disarray if Victor Oladipo can kind of figure it out. And he needs to just be a serviceable piece at this point. He doesn't have to be 22 points per game NBA All-Star Victor Oladipo.
Right.
And he's not that anymore. He's just been hurt for a while. But You gave him the vet minimum. Now this dude has a real chance to kind of turn this thing around. And they got
he signed for the vet minimum?
Yeah, I believe.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and then also, I don't know if you guys read that the Sixers wanted Dwayne Dedmon badly, and he had no intention of playing in Philadelphia.
Yeah, he said, "Don't hit my line,"
which we'll get in my point when we talk about the Sixers.
Go ahead, Brock.
So I'm kind of stuck in a rock and a hard place with money because I say the market demands. So whatever Jimmy got paid, whatever Dunk got paid, whatever Kyle Lowry got paid, it's more so a sign of the times than it is teams just opening their wallets and throwing stupid money at players. Is it going to be an investment you may regret in 2 years when Kyle Lowry's 2 years older, maybe 2 years more injured, and Duncan Robinson isn't who you thought he was when you gave him $90 million? But ultimately, I think Miami's putting all their eggs in one basket. And it's probably the best decision they can make at the moment, because think about Jimmy, right? Jimmy's going to make over $40 million in each season until he's 40 years old. But this kind of reminds me of the Bryce Harper signing in Philadelphia, where you make a huge investment, and it's not just for the product the player puts on the field. It's for getting fans in the arena. It's for attracting other players in free agency. So Jimmy Butler's not only going to produce on the court, but also when there's a top-tier free agent, let's say when Dame's a free agent in 4 years, when Bradley Beal's a free agent, when Embiid's a free agent in 2 years, hey, we got Jimmy Butler locked up for 4 years. We've got Bam locked up. Jimmy puts in a call. This guy might want to go play in Miami. Miami's a hot spot. There's a lot of girls there. There's a lot of clubs there. I think you don't have to pay a state income tax or a property tax, whatever it is in Miami. But it's a destination players want to go to. So the investment is what the investment is. What I will say about Miami, they're going to be nasty on defense. They're going to be a grimy defensive team that you're not going to want to go see on the road, okay? Because between PJ, who's enough to make up an entire defensive identity, you add Markieff Morris to that equation, who, regardless of what his play is too, is enough to make up a defensive identity. Victor Oladipo, one and the same. A good defender if he's got anything left in the tank, really impactful. Dwayne Dedmon, also defensive identity. You've got Udonis still on the roster as a coach. Kyle Lowry there, enough to contribute to identity. So Miami is not going to lack identity at all. They're going to have identity, and that's going to be enough to really frighten guys going on the road into Miami or hosting Miami. But the product on the court might be another thing, because Bam has some offensive limitations. Jimmy Butler, he doesn't have many offensive limitations, but there's a hole in his game. It's from beyond the arc. Kyle Lowry is a fantastic point guard, but he's had some health concerns in the past 2 years. So if Miami stays healthy, they should be a top 5 team in the East. They should, and that's just based solely on their defense. But Miami is a beatable team. I don't want people to start thinking that Miami is just going to have a cakewalk to a top 3 seed and they're an unbeatable team. They are a beatable squad, but they've got a lot of money locked up into 3 players.
Yeah, that's kind of where my issue lies. My issue lies with the whole – listen, I wanted Kyle Lowry at the deadline. I would have liked the addition of Kyle Lowry to the Sixers squad this offseason for the right amount of years and the right money. But, like, the people that are just, as Sixers fans, already scared of the Miami Heat because why? Because they added a 36, 37-year-old Kyle Lowry. Like, that makes them world beaters. As if, everyone's talking about the Sixers' shortcomings, right? And I know that the Heat battled COVID this year and they battled injuries and et cetera. But as if the Heat just didn't get swept by the world champions in round 1 this year, right? So, like, adding a 36, 37-year-old Kyle Lowry doesn't just, boom, they got a big 3. Like, I don't view the Heat as a big 3. They have a nice all-around squad, as you said, Brock. They're going to be, I think they're a top 4 team in the Eastern Conference.
They don't
have like some big 3.
They got their point guard, and I think what they might lack in big 3 talent, they make up for in big 3 mentality, where it doesn't matter who Jimmy has, he's going to war. And it's great that he has a guy like Bam to his right and Jimmy to his left now, because like I said, whatever they may lack in actual big 3 talent, they make up for in their mentality. They think they're a big 3, and that enough is enough for that team to compete.
Yeah.
But my thing with Kyle Lowry, I'm not sure if this is true or not. I read it in an Athletic article a few days ago. Kyle Lowry was predestined to go to Miami in a sense. Like, after this free agency, he was going to sign in Miami regardless. He wants to play with Jimmy. That's his boy. So it was rumored in the article that even if Philly did trade for Kyle Lowry and they would have to mortgage their assets, future picks, Tyrese Maxey or Matisse potentially, they'd have to convince Lowry to stay in Philly, which might not have been difficult, but imagine this. You trade Maxey and future firsts or whatever for Kyle Lowry, and then Kyle Lowry doesn't sign.
For half a year, right?
That's your roster 2 years ago, Jimmy Butler. And now they're both in Miami. Philly doesn't have Tyrese Maxey anymore, and then Joel Embiid signs a 4-year freaking contract in Miami in 2 years, you know? It could have been dysfunctional, but like I said, I don't know if that's true or not.
Gint was smiling when I was making my Kyle Lowry point, so I'll let Gint speak because I can't wait to hear what he has to say about the former Villanova Wildcat.
So first, I wanted to bring up, so Brock, you mentioned the Jimmy thing. Obviously, Jimmy ended up, we had to sign and trade him to go to Miami. I think the difference of trying to convince Lowry would have been, I think, in my opinion, if we made the move, we would have won the title. So it probably would have been a little bit easier. And same thing with Jimmy. I mean, if they would have just fired Brett, we probably still would have had Jimmy too. So I still think the Lowry move would have been worth it. I still tweet about it all the time. But also, the Lowry slander really won't stand. I get he's 36, 37. I think they did go all in on this year. And this guy last year averaged close to 20 points a game, 7 dimes a game, 6 rebounds. This guy still plays at an elite level.
That's fine. But I said just because they added Kyle Lowry doesn't make them some world beaters that people are already scared of.
It makes them much better than they were last year.
Well,
okay. Does it make them okay? They got swept in the first round. They have to get better than they were last year by adding Kyle Lowry.
I mean, if we played Milwaukee, we probably would have ran into the same issue. But beside the point, they got infinitely better, and especially because,
I agree with you.
The image now they portray is way different than what it was last year. They added these tough guys, because last year it was literally just Udonis barking from the bench and Jimmy on the court. The rest of them were Goran Dragic, Kendrick Nunn, Tyler Hero. These weren't these guys where you went to Miami and thought, "Wow, we're going to get the shit kicked out of us tonight." Now it is like that now. And
so let's. I want to switch this to. I want to shift gears to the Sixers. So let's base it off of this. Again, I feel like I know you're going to say I want to go with the guest and go with Brock first.
Thank you,
Brock. Do these moves for the Miami Heat, are they better than the Philadelphia 76ers right now?
Are the Miami Heat better than the Sixers?
Yes.
I'm going to reserve comment there. I'm going to reserve comment. Now, I say that because I don't want to make any judgments on these teams where I haven't seen these guys hoop yet. What I will say about Miami is that they got a true point guard, which, I mean, Goran is Goran. He's fantastic. But Kyle Lowry at his best during Toronto's playoff run gives you 17-7 on efficient shooting, and he's an extension of the coach, Eric Spoelstra, one of the best coaches in basketball. So Miami's cool at the point guard position. And to Gint's point, they've got some dogs out there. They were already tough defensively and a team you don't want to play on the road. Well, now they're even better because, like Gint said, they got those dogs. But I think it's unfair to compare what Miami did to what Philly did because what Philly has done has basically been nothing. They've addressed a couple of holes on their bench. They've added some depth, but no one knows the direction Philly's going in yet. So in 2 months, the Sixers team could look completely different. The Sixers could have traded Ben to Indiana and gotten 4 guys back. It's a completely different roster. So comparatively, Miami got better than Philly did. But Philly hasn't done anything yet. So in 2 months, we're having a different conversation.
I only asked this question and posed this question for the Sixers fans that are overreacting and that are already pissed off at this offseason, who last year didn't think that the Heat were better than the Sixers, and now that the Sixers haven't done anything yet and that the Heat have added Lowry and whatever, that are already shifting gears saying the Sixers aren't better than the Heat now.
Listen, Philly fans are goofballs. Philly fans are cowards, most of them. I'm going to take you back to a quote my dad put me onto from the 1980s. Mike Schmidt. You guys know Mike Schmidt. Come on now. Mike Schmidt, I think, went on a road trip. They were playing in Montreal or wherever, right? And he had a ton of comments about Philly fans. He said they're like an angry mob. They're reactionary. They overreact to everything. And I almost feel like if I was in LA or if I had my career and played in Chicago, I would have had a better career. And that's coming from arguably the best third baseman ever played the game, let alone in Philly, just because the Philly fans didn't appreciate him. And they really didn't. It was a love-hate relationship. So Schmidt came back from that road trip with a wig on and a fake beard, I believe. And the Philly fans loved it because he made these comments and he kind of took accountability by putting on this disguise. And then Philly fans loved Mike Schmidt. And we all know how that story was written. Schmidt had a fantastic ball career. But I say that to say this. Philly fans are reactionary. And a lot of them, they don't understand putting things into context. And just because Ben Simmons is still on the roster means that whatever the Sixers do, they're going to hate. It doesn't matter. They could have signed Andre Drummond to a one-year deal for 5 cents, and Sixers fans would still hate it because Ben's on the roster. And that's just the way it is. So when Sixers fans say Miami did this, I don't want to do – you got to be able to look at the bigger picture. The Sixers aren't done yet because they haven't even gotten started. You're hearing quotes from Ramona Shelburne and a guy that writes for Bleacher. No one knows what's going on internally. And the fact that you don't hear noise, you don't hear rumblings, and you don't hear these crazy trade rumors, that's a good thing.
I'm going to jump in because I don't want to say – also, I'm not opposed to keeping Ben because, like, I've stated that before. I would like to try to figure things out with him on the roster because I know what he does on the court. And
right.
This playoff series was an anomaly. Now, you could say he struggled in the playoffs, yeah, but what he just did was not something he's ever done before. And you can't say he has because he hasn't. I don't think Miami's necessarily better. And like Brock said, it's hard to gauge that. You just have to look at 2 pieces of paper with names on it. Right now, Philly doesn't have the names because physically they don't have enough roster spots filled yet. There's moves that still need to be made, like physically.
And on paper, they might still be better than Miami.
Like Philadelphia was a 48-win team last year in a 72-game season. So realistically, they would have been a 50-win team in an 82-game season. So these people that are so against running this thing back and trying to figure this thing out with Ben, to me, I don't really get it. I won't get it until next year comes out. And if we run it back, it goes drastically wrong. But I will say the moves have been underwhelming so far, but it's been 2 days. And you act in the moment, you know what I mean? Go ahead.
But I just want to say this for all the overreaction. That's because you can't fill out the rest of your roster until that first domino falls. That's what this whole summer, this whole offseason is, quote unquote, supposed to be about. That's the major change that people want, right? Well, you don't know what you're getting back from Ben yet, or if you move Toby, whatever the hell they do, you can't shape your roster until you know what you got back from that.
Listen, the Sixers don't have any money. They're 10th in payroll, which means they're paying some of the most guaranteed money in the NBA. They don't have money to spend. So people might say, well, they couldn't give Patty Mills 2 years, $12 million. They couldn't sign Malik Monk. They might have tried. But what happened with Dwayne Dedmon not picking up the phone for Philly could have happened with those free agents. Someone could have reached out to Patty Mills and said, look, we'll give you a 2-year, $12 million contract. He said, I'd rather play in Brooklyn. Or LA just had more pull. The fans of Philly have to understand that not everything revolves around the Philadelphia 76ers, or more so Philadelphia sports teams. Other organizations might have pull. They might be a better free agent destination. So to say, why didn't you get this guy? Or why didn't you? I think it's a little ignorant because you have no idea what's going on behind closed doors, and there's stuff that doesn't get reported. But ultimately, I think you're right, Dylan. The Sixers can only do so much. I mean, what are they going to do? They're going to go sign Dennis Schroeder. They're going to give Reggie Jackson a big contract.
Right. And then because once you do that, you're putting the Dame trade out of the window. Like before you find out if I'm just using Dame as an example. Dame's the point guard. If you go out and sign Dennis Schroeder to whatever kind of money he would get, you're pushing that aside because now what are you going to do? You're going to have Dame and Dennis Schroeder or another point guard and Dennis Schroeder. You can't shape your roster until what you get back from Ben is received.
So I think the Sixers have had a magnificent offseason so far. And that sounds crazy because there's, 3 to 5 transactions. There was waiving George Hill, and there was 3 free agent acquisitions. There was the draft. But I'm going to break it down to you this way, okay? The Sixers, at the very least, if they retain Ben and run it back, 48
are
wins,
a little better.
Would be a top 3 seed. If they retain their entire core, the Sixers should be a top 3 seed. So keeping that in mind, Daryl Morey is operating like the Sixers are running it back. Now, I'm sure he's still calling and has trades on the line for Ben, and they're probably going to trade Ben. The unfortunate reality is that at some point within the next season, they're going to trade Ben, whether it's in 2 weeks at the deadline or after the season. But the Sixers, unfortunately, are probably trading Ben. Now, are you going to do that right now and handicap yourself to a Buddy Hield contract and Marvin Bagley and just getting better offensively, but still not being able to compete with Brooklyn or with the Lakers? Or let's say you retain the core, you still like the idea of you being a top 3 seed. Okay, so how do you maintain that relevance? How do you continue to put that product on the court? You have to run it back the way you did this year. The Sixers get Andre Drummond. People hate this signing. I don't understand why. Look, we can because we're nerds. Most people can't name me 10 backup centers in the NBA. I don't even know if I could, honestly. If I could, off the top of my head, name 10 backup centers in the NBA. So the fact that people have this outrage.
But a dude that averages 18 and 13.
It's unbelievable. But I'll put it to you this way. Did anybody last year play out of their role on the Sixers? No. Gint says no. Dylan says no. They didn't. Everybody played within their role. And why do you think? There was accountability from the top down. You got Daryl Morey. You got Doc Rivers. Joe probably holding guys accountable now more. There were some veteran presences in the locker room. So there was accountability. Everybody played within their role. Why do you think that Andre Drummond's going to come to the Sixers and do what he did on a 20-win Cavaliers squad, or a rebuilding Detroit squad that wanted him traded, or a Lakers squad that had no idea how to utilize him because nobody was healthy on that team? Andre Drummond's not coming to Philly on a vet minimum contract at 27 years old to come handle the rock and cook up and face up and shoot and do all this crazy stuff that you've seen him do before. He's coming to be a big body. He's coming to rebound, which he's done better than anybody since 2017. He has the most boards in the NBA. He's coming to have active hands, fill passing lanes, put a body on guys in the paint, set screens so the guys higher on the shot hierarchy, Tyrese Maxey, Shake Milton, Furkan Korkmaz, can get around screens and shoot. Look, Dwight Howard played in 69 of 72 games. That means he didn't play in 3 games the entire season. He played in almost every game. Yet he was responsible for 12% of the bench's shots. I tweeted that this morning. Why? That's such a minuscule amount of shots. Dwight was out there setting screens, freeing his ball handlers and shot creators.
Not very well, I may add.
And getting in the paint. And he did it very well. He did it better than any Sixers backup center in the past 25 seasons. Okay? Andre Drummond is a 1,000-plus point scorer, a 1,000-plus rebound getter in almost 7 straight seasons. He's only a year removed from one of those seasons. The dude is 27. So at the very least, he will replicate what Dwight gave to you, except he has a more polished game. He can do more offensively. He fumbles a little bit when he's dribbling, and when he tries to do too much, it looks ugly. And Drummond does that a lot.
But if he's not asked to do that.
Exactly. Andre Drummond isn't going to get the touches he got on a rebuilding Detroit squad or a Cleveland squad that just wanted to buy him out. He's going to get maybe 10, 15 touches a game. And if Andre Drummond, who averages 18 and 14, 14 and 12 in the playoffs with the Lakers, whatever, if he gets 18 minutes, that's cool. Because in 18 minutes, he's going to be more impactful than he would be destructive. And think about it this way. Joel Embiid gets hurt. He gets hurt plenty. And he misses a lot of ball games. Okay? Now, would you rather have Dwight Howard starting, Hassan Whiteside starting, DeMarcus Cousins starting in Joel Embiid's absence, or Andre Drummond, who, like I said, is 27 and has made a career out of starting and dominating at the center position? It's a little clunky because he doesn't move his feet or stretch the floor as well as the modern 5 does. But thinking about it from that perspective, if Embiid has to miss 20 games, you'd rather have Andre Drummond starting because you're more confident rolling him out at the center position and winning with him there than you are with Hassan Whiteside or with DeMarcus, etc. And it's a veteran minimum deal. It's not even eating into your cap. It's a vet minimum. So that's my opinion on Drummond. You guys can follow up there. But I also love the George Niang signing. I love that. And I think getting Korkmaz on a bargain deal was fantastic as well.
Let me ask this, though. And it's a 2-part question. Here's the first part. Do you think the Drummond deal screams Ben won't be here? After what you just saw with Dwight and Ben, you saw the lineup with those two never really worked, and the stats said it. Do you think there's a chance that that deal was made with a back pocket deal about Ben?
I think anything the Sixers do, they're keeping in mind that they might move Ben. So in a sense, yes. But at the same time, I'll kind of touch back on my previous point. Like, would you rather have clunky lineups with Dwight, with Hassan Whiteside, with Boogie, who can't move? I mean, the center pool, it wasn't that deep. So in my opinion, you're taking the lesser of multiple evils. And Andre Drummond is the youngest, the healthiest, and the most impactful of any remaining center they could have gotten. So sure, I'm sure in the back of their mind, they're like, well, this fit isn't going to work with Ben. But at the same time, it's like, it's better than rolling Hassan Whiteside out there with Ben, or rolling Boogie out there if he has to start and play 30 minutes on a given night. So
the calculators,
yeah, it's calculated.
The calculators that tell you to go get Luke Cornett, or he would be a better fit.
Yeah, like bro. So I just think, and I'll let you get to your part two of that question. I just think people are misunderstanding what Drummond was bought here to do. He's not going to be playing 25 minutes a night, getting a healthy dose of touches, face-ups, and the offense is going to run through him. He's going to play within a system that favors big men, right? Like, think about Tony Bradley. Tony Bradley was a great fundamental center that did what he had to do, and he got, it was a vet minimum, but he got a contract in a good team. The Chicago Bulls, they signed Tony Bradley. Tony Bradley looked good within the Sixers system. Dwight Howard, I don't want to say he rejuvenated his career because he won a chip with the Lakers, but this was the best Dwight has looked in a minute in the Sixers system. Paul Reed looks great in the Sixers system. Why? Because it's a very simplified system. And if Andre Drummond accepts that and plays within that role, he should replicate at the very least what Dwight's done. And people will say, well, Andre Drummond historically has never played within his role. He's never accepted his role. Okay, well then why'd he sign a vet minimum knowing that Joel Embiid was second in the MVP race and is going to play 32 minutes a night? Andre Drummond knows that when he signs here. He hates – him and Embiid have a history of banner and shit talking, right? So Andre Drummond here signing here, he had to have known that before coming here. That, okay, I got to play a role, and if I don't, I'm either not going to play or I'm getting cut because it's a vet minimum deal.
To your point, Brock, you brought up the Dwight point. Maybe he saw that. Maybe he took account of how Dwight looked last year for the first time in a long time, and he knows the path his career was going down at a young age. He's like, yo, I'm going to go, even if he doesn't see it long term, if it's just this 1 year vet minimum, I can go reinvent myself in Philadelphia and then cash in a year or two.
Of course. I'm sure he saw what Dwight did. They played the Sixers. Drummond played. Of course he saw what Dwight did. And he's thinking the same thing. Dwight had the best season in 25 years that a Sixers backup center had. Why can't I do the same? I'm 7 years younger. I'm fresher. I'm a better center than him. So I think as long as he accepts his role, he'll be cool. And think about this, right? When Cleveland bought out Drummond last year, everyone's freaking out. Boston can't get Drummond. If Brooklyn gets Drummond, it's a wrap.
It's over.
And
now we don't want him.
On the East Coast was happy that he went out to LA and the Sixers wouldn't have to see Drummond in a Brooklyn uniform or Boston in the playoffs. Now they signed Drummond for literally the vet minimum, so he can only outperform that, and everyone hates him.
I agree with you, dude. I'll let Gint get in here too, but my whole point is I said this to Gint from the minute it's signed. Gint can attest to it. He's going to do what Dwight did defensively. He's going to rim protect. He's going to clean up the glass. He can do all that, fill passing lanes, as you mentioned, Brock, but he's got more of a bag offensively. He's averaged 17 to 18 points his entire career. He shot over 50% from the field most of his career. In the beginning of his career, he shot over 60% from the field. So I'm happy to have a backup center who, while, you're right, Dwight Howard was the best backup center Joel Embiid's ever had that the Sixers have had in over 2 decades. But Dwight Howard didn't provide anything offensively, really. A couple putbacks, alley-oops. Andre Drummond, Embiid sits. Embiid can't play. Someone has to start. Drummond can go out and get you 20. Drummond can
get you 40 and 20. He was doing that last year, dropping 30 and 25 blocks.
So I don't get it at all, dude. I get he's not a good free throw shooter. Neither was Dwight Howard. Not a lot of centers, especially backup centers, are. Like, he's going to do everything Dwight Howard did defensively. plus more offensively on a vet minimum deal. This is my point with Philly fans. They just want to complain to complain. I said it last week. Jump on in here.
So it's a question I'm going to ask, and maybe I'm looking into things a little.
I do want to get to Ben soon, by the way.
Yeah. It's kind of leading into that, to be honest. But we're looking at Monk, minimum deal, none, no money. Oladipo, no money. LeBron going to South Beach, going to LA. And it could just be like honestly a location spot. Miami, South Beach, palm trees, you know what I mean? LA is LA. Why doesn't Philly get these kind of guys? I mean, they just got Andre Drummond. I know we just talked about that, but who is the best name on paper that we have signed as a free agent since Joel Embiid has been in Philadelphia? I think it's Al Horford.
Did they trade for JJ or sign JJ?
I think they signed.
They signed JJ.
On paper at the time, Horford's probably better. So this is leading to the question: do you think around the league guys want to play with Joel Embiid?
You're not going to like my response. Brock, you want to go first, or I'll go? Neither of you are going to like my response. You just phrased the question from Joel Embiid's standpoint, and I get it. Whatever, dude. Joel Embiid, he kind of keeps to himself. He's a traditional center. Not a lot of guys have played with that. Yada yada. Yeah, I'm going to have to disagree with the fact that the runner-up to MVP is the reason people don't want to come here, and the point guard that's still on the roster that refuses to shoot is the reason people don't want to come here. I know you guys don't like that answer, but that's how I feel.
Let me ask you this, because there's star-studded names out there right now that are in places that aren't winning, and they're not requesting trades to Philly. Yeah. Dame has said he wants to play with a guy like Bam and Giannis. Beal has been in a trash can of Washington for the longest time, and we've had the asset of Ben Simmons that could be flipped for him at any given moment.
Yeah.
And right now, Philadelphia would do whatever they could to make that move happen. So to me, and I might be looking too far into this, but I don't understand why we can't. Do you think it's the health point? Do you think it's accountability on laziness? I don't know.
Here's what I'll say, and this goes for anybody that blames Ben Simmons for wasting any years of Joel Embiid's prime. If you're going to blame anybody for wasting Embiid's prime, it's the front office. It's the dudes in charge of what's going on, right? So I think for the past couple of seasons, guys have kind of deterred from Philly because, A, they weren't a real championship contender. This was the first year where legitimately Philly could have competed for a championship. So 3 years ago, you look at Dario, you look at Rocco, Ben, Embiid, a young core, not to mention coached by Brett Brown and straight dysfunction within the front office. It's probably not a popular destination. I think last year, Morey coming here, a new regime, Danny Green signing here was huge. Dwight Howard signing here was huge. So I think over time, it'll become a better destination for free agents the more you get rid of that dysfunction. But honestly, I really don't know. I really don't know what guys are thinking because like you talk to Tobias post-game, we'll talk about Embiid or Dwight or Danny or Seth, and they're like, this guy you've never seen anything like him before. 7 foot, 300-pound gravedigger, bigger bag than most guards in the league, moves better than most guards in the league. The dude is an anomaly hooper at the center position. He's a troll. He's probably fun off the court. So I don't know if it's so much as Embiid as it is Simmons. I kind of agree with you, Dylan. I think maybe, and good point in the chat. He was a trade.
Well, I just want to touch on this real quick. Shooters, yeah, we have talked about this a ton. How Ben makes life easier for Danny and Seth in transition and everything like that. We're talking about why don't the big name free agents, why don't the Dames of the world want to trade? That's different from.
I think a lot remains to be seen with Dame and Beal. I've heard that Beal didn't love the way he was treated in Philly, specifically in the playoffs too. I'm not sure if a fan base is enough to make you not want to play with Joel Embiid or not sign because they'd embrace you if you were on the squad. But to be honest with you, I don't know what that answer is. I really don't. Like, if you get Milwaukee, Miami, and Philly calling you, what are the business pitches? And why would you not want to play in Philly? That's an answer I really don't have. I don't have.
Milwaukee's the one I understand, but Milwaukee's not going out grabbing big-time free agents either. They're making trades. They got Giannis through the draft, et cetera, et cetera. The two destinations which we're seeing this year in free agency are the destination, LA, Miami.
Well, yeah.
Sunshine, weather, no state income tax in Miami, LeBron, Pat Riley, et cetera, et cetera. Those two are always going to beat out Philly. I know that sucks to say. They're going to beat out Philly. Milwaukee, like, okay, yeah, I get it. Brooklyn got Kyrie and KD last year. They went there to build a super team. And New York, the Knicks are just so dysfunctional. If the Knicks were an option, they would have went to New York Knicks over the Brooklyn Nets. They're too dysfunctional. Patty Mills signed there. I get that. Patty Mills, as much as, we wanted him here in Philly, he's not some star-studded backup point guard that's getting $6 million a year. He is. I agree. But my point is, he's like, it's not like Patty Mills was, we missed out on this big time age.
Philly, they at the moment they just don't have pull like that. I think it's I like I said, I don't know if it's fan base. I don't think it's playing with Embiid. I really don't know if Embiid's a player that guys don't want to play with, but I think for a while it was Brett Brown and the dysfunction at the top. But as of right now, like my question,
Jimmy loved Joel.
And
we might not like Jimmy Butler anymore. And but Jimmy loved Joel.
Look, Jimmy's reaching out to guys to play with him. Embiid's doing it. They're all doing it. But I'm curious. You got me thinking, like, if Danny Green's sitting in his crib in the offseason and Philly calls, Milwaukee calls, Miami calls, how does Philly not have the pull to retain Danny Green? If the money works out everywhere and he's getting the same money everywhere, why does Philly not have the pull or the business pitch to retain Danny Green? And that's a question I don't have an answer to because
I don't have that answer either. But what I'll say, I don't have that answer either. Nobody does. But when I take Gint's question for what it is, and he threw out a player's name, I'm arguing with it against the other player. That is which one? If it's a player thing, if it's not a location thing, if it's not a management thing, if it's not a weather thing, money thing, what is it? Is it the dude who just dropped 30 and whatever on a torn meniscus, did whatever it took to win, was an MVP runner-up, or as much as I still like him and loved him and defended him for so long, the point guard who won't freaking shoot and passed out of a dunk in Game 7.
The question has nothing to do with Ben. Ben's not a part of this question.
Because you're saying, is it Joel? And I'm saying no. If it's down to a player, why players don't want to come here, it's damn sure not Joel Embiid. It's the other one.
Okay, so then that retains back to my question. Why hasn't there been one big name that signed here since Joel Embiid has started here?
Because
Ben came here right after Joel and played.
But let me go back to this point because you're saying it's Ben, and I'm just playing devil's advocate in the situation.
Yeah,
I have not seen one player ever, maybe like Jared Dudley and other guys like that say things about Ben in terms of slander. You look at every single All-Star game draft ever, right when the reserves are able to pick that Ben's been in. It's I wanted him. I wanted him. I don't think these stars have never came out and because there's trash talking in the NBA. Joel Embiid's disrespect people. Everyone's disrespect. James Harden and Giannis disrespected each other. It happens. There has not been one disrespectful thing said about Ben, and maybe because I don't know why.
No, I've seen players have come out and trashed Ben over this playoff run on social media, mocking him because of what he's doing.
Ben, there would be no reason for a player like Dame or Beal to not want to play with Ben. Like, legitimately, because look, Dame might let's say Portland's playing Phoenix, right? Portland's playing Phoenix, and Dame's on Portland with Ben. Both of them are on Portland. Dame doesn't have to worry about guarding his assignment. Dame doesn't have to think about guarding Devin Booker. And also, Ben's just going to give him Ben's not going to take any shots away from him. So I don't think there's incentive for a guy to not want to play with Ben, but I do think there's incentive for a player not wanting to deal with what Ben's going to bring to that. So a player might not want to come to Philly to be scrutinized in this market under a microscope because of what Ben does and have to deal with all that external noise. They might just want a peaceful locker room. But I think this, to me, this Sixers squad from 2020-21, I said this plenty, was incomparable to any Sixers squad in the process era or any team Embiid or Simmons suited up for, because this was the first real year of cohesion top to bottom on the court, locker room, front office. So I think it's kind of not like an imbalanced argument, but I can understand players not wanting to come play for Philly when Ben and Embiid were 24 years old, coached by Brett Brown, and it was Scott O'Neal and Sam Hinkie getting fired and the Colangelo because no one likes those guys. No one wants to play for Brett Brown. But within the next 2 years, like let's say the Sixers sign Embiid to a super max because he's eligible, and Doc Rivers is still here, Morey's still here. Then if guys still don't want to come to Philly, like if Dame requests a trade, New York can't get him right now because they got Kemba and Derrick Rose making a combined $120 million. Dame's getting the most guaranteed money for the next 4 years. It can't be New York. If the Sixers lose out on Dame or Beal to a team like, I don't know, the Pistons or the Magic, then there's a serious problem. Then there's a serious problem.
But that comes to my point of what I kind of brought up, but then it somehow steered to they don't want to play Ben. But like the league is player driven. We just watched James Harden force himself into Brooklyn's hands for a package that was not even nearly enough. Right. And so now you guys are sitting here telling me that this move, if Dame really wanted to play with Joel Embiid, that this move can't happen because of Ben, that doesn't make sense. Because if Dame's going, Portland's going to get the best assets possible. And these teams we're naming do not have Ben Simmons as a package, and Portland would take that because one, he's probably in terms of names, he's probably the best available. Now, like you said, if we lose out on that trade, let's say the report the other day was Toronto. Dame goes to Toronto. No, I'm saying Dame to Toronto.
Dame to Toronto. Oh my God!
So you lose out on that deal, and he goes somewhere for OG Anunoby and Fred VanVleet and these names that, and some people think VanVleet's better than Ben. I won't stand for that nonsense. But so you can't tell me, and I'm not sitting here saying it's a thing because I don't know the answer. I'm not Bradley Beal. I'm not Damian Lillard. You can't tell me at that point there's not a stigma between NBA players that maybe it's Joel's health. Maybe, and it could be also maybe they don't want to deal with what's going on in the locker room. You just saw Joel after a Game 7 loss on their home court where he turned the ball over 8 times and he said, I think we lost when he passed the ball to Matisse Thybulle, essentially is what he said, word for word. So
yo, I'm acting like none of this happened, bro. like game 6 on, it's like there's a little compartment in my memory with Game 6 on, but I'm just ignoring it. Like, bro.
Listen, all I want to say is, I understand your question. The reason I brought up Ben is because you mentioned Joel as the player. So my counter argument was that if we're mentioning players, no, I'm not buying. I'm sorry. Maybe this is my side of my overreactionary, point as a fan coming out, but I'm not watching what I just watched over the course of this last year and Joel's MVP type season and Ben's playoff, shortcomings again. And I'm refusing to believe, I'm not saying what you're saying is totally out of, line and it's not true at all, but I'm refusing to believe that the reason we don't get free agents is because of Joel Embiid. And my argument is, no, it's not that guy. It's the other guy. And I've stuck up for Ben Simmons for so long. And I said to you, it's not the worst thing in the world. This is where I kind of want to transition a little bit with the Ben talks. It's not the worst thing in the world if they run it back and Ben comes back. Again, we talked about this yesterday. They'll win 50-plus games. It's all in the regular season. It's all he and Joel have done their entire careers. They'll be a top 3 to 4 seed in the Eastern Conference, depending on injuries and everything like that. They'll win their first round of the playoffs in 4 to 5 games. I think where a lot of fans' hearts and trust come into issue, and now mine as well with Ben, is none of that matters to me anymore. The 52 wins in the regular season, the attacking in the regular, it doesn't matter to me until I witness it in the postseason. So over the course of the next year, it doesn't matter. With that being said, I know I've said this to you, Gint, and Brock, I'll say this. I don't think I've ever said this to you, but I'll say it to you now. With all that being said, you don't sell Ben Simmons for pennies on the dollar like a lot of this fan base wants to do. The only way, what have we done our entire, like I just said, they've won 50-plus games every year. They were just the number 1 seed. Yes, they lost in 7 games. They lost 3 times at the Wells Fargo Center to a Lester Hawks team.
Talking about Ben, you make it mad.
Hold on, I'm defending it now. Hold on. So that's not my point. Is that we're stuck here. We're stuck in this second round. We can't get over the hump. We can't get to the Eastern Conference Finals, right? So what do you do? To me, the glaring issue. There was a lot of issues. You guys talked about the Joel Embiid turnovers. Tobias Harris had 4 points on his home floor in a Game 5. Doc Rivers had his shortcomings. Another blown series lead. I get all of it. But to me, the issues 1 through 3 were the point guard and his shortcomings came up again, right? So theoretically, that's what you have to move to get better. But that's not necessarily the truth with me, Brock, because you move Ben Simmons. Why? To push the Sixers closer to winning a championship. Buddy Hield and Marvin Bagley don't push you closer to winning a championship. D'Angelo Russell, Colin Sexton, and Kevin Love don't push you closer to winning a championship. So many people in this fan base want Ben to be moved for the Sixers to be different. That doesn't mean the Sixers will be better, and that should be the overall goal. Making them better, pushing them over the hump, getting them closer to a championship. Moving Ben for one of those lesser packages isn't it. However, I don't know how you do run it back because my heart can't be in it until I see it proven in the playoffs.
So here's what I'll say. I love your point about the regular season means nothing anymore. Because for me, somebody that's always tweeting about a defensive game or creating shots for their teammates, Ben's done this now 2 or 3 times. And I've defended every single playoff series he's had. But unfortunately, at this point, whatever he does in the regular season, it won't matter. For someone like Gint, for someone like me that enjoys watching that in his game, we love it. But we can't be public about it anymore because people won't entertain it. It's BS to people that watched what they watched in the Atlanta series. I'm retaining Ben Simmons right now for one reason. It's your best shot at getting Dame Lillard or Bradley Beal. So you wait until Dame gets back in the States. You see if anything happens in Washington. If they request a trade, you're in a great position because at the very least, you're going to be winning, like Dylan said, and Embiid and Ben have a 70-plus win percentage together throughout their careers. So if you retain Ben, at the very least, you're winning in the regular season, and you've built his trade value back up enough to where you're the biggest player. It's disrespectful to compare OG Anunoby or Van Vliet to him or anybody else any team could offer. If Ben plays like Ben in the opening 20, 30 games of the regular season, you have the best asset in the NBA to get Dame or Bradley Beal. And it's not going to cost you any games because they'll be cool in the regular season. But I have the expectation, which could be bad, that if you keep Ben, you're also adding a point guard. Because if you add a point guard, then you can utilize Ben in different ways than you've never seen him before. But the problem is Patty Mills went to Brooklyn, campaigned, re-signed with the Phoenix Suns. Reggie Jackson probably isn't coming to Philly. Dennis Schroeder, unless it's a sign and trade, probably isn't coming to Philly. So now you're going to have to maneuver and really determine, are we rocking with Ben at point for another season? If we trade for a point midway through the season, how do we integrate them? It's going to be a brand new offense and system for them. They're going to have to defer to Embiid. So you've got to really maneuver and think. But having said all that, I don't think Daryl Morey is the type of guy to really hold on to Ben at all costs. So that's not to say if Indiana doesn't call Philly tomorrow and say, we'll give you Malcolm Brogdon, Karis LeVert, and TJ Warren. I'm just making up a package. I don't know if Morey's going to say no to that immediately. That might be something that Morey's like, hey, we get some depth. We get a point guard. This is going to unlock Embiid. He might be happy. Sure, let's do it. But it's not going to be a decision made by just Morey. It's going to have to be green-lighted by both Doc Rivers and Joel Embiid.
I know we're going to wrap it up soon, so I'll just kind of leave my Ben comments with this.
Oh, we're going over 2 hours, bro.
Bro, we kept talking about until we see it, until we see it, until we see it. And the team that just won the title probably kind of heard that a lot too. And I'm not comparing Giannis and Ben because Giannis is a world-class player and he's the top 2 player in the NBA probably at this point. But this fan base was so okay with 6 years of losing games on purpose, all this, all that. And now I get it. Embiid has a small window and it's I don't know how much time is left, but to say you'll flip Ben for Buddy Hield and Marvin Bagley and think this team has a shot to even beat at that point Miami is
right. Because you know what makes me laugh at that part of it, Gint, is why do people want to move Ben? Because they're going into this year, if we're running it back, they don't think we're able to contend for a title. And that may be true. Maybe we can't get over the hump with these two. Maybe Ben isn't going to add to his game offensively this year, and we're just going to do the same thing again. However, if you make that trade for a Buddy Hield, a D'Angelo Russell, You damn sure know you're not winning a championship going into the regular season.
The Sixers know that. Daryl Morey knows that. If this bridge was burnt beyond repair, where
do you think it is, dude? Like, okay,
I think the relationship with the fans is fractured beyond repair at the moment. Now, that
what do you think with Ben? But I'm saying from Ben, there's rumors from Ben and his camp that he doesn't want to come back leaking out now.
I see, the first word there is the problem for me. Rumors. I don't believe rumors. I don't believe what I see on the internet. So to me, it's all tongue in cheek. It's just dialogue. But here's where I'm at, right? Unless the relationship between Ben, Doc, Embiid, and Ben's teammates is fractured beyond repair, the Sixers don't want to trade Ben right now because there's no need to. If they felt like that locker room was so fractured they needed to trade Ben, they would have done it. But instead, you keep seeing all these reports about outrageous asking prices. Why? Because unless they're getting Dame or Beal, we're not going to trade them. We're not going to make a move that's going to make us worse. So for as much as you dislike Ben Simmons and what he brings to the Sixers and this lack of cohesion with him and Embiid, and they can't win together in the playoffs, for all that, let me put it to you this way. You trade for Fred VanVleet and OG Anunoby. Let's say that's it. Or you trade for Buddy Hield, Marvin Bagley. You trade for one of those packages. Cool? Cool. You can't sign a point guard because they're all gone. You're not getting Kyle Lowry. You're not getting Reggie Cam, like I said. So, A, you've got no point guard. Okay? You probably
unless you're starting Maxey.
Yeah. Okay. You're starting Tyrese Maxey in his second season, and Seth is your two guard. Neither one of them are over 6'3". So that backcourt's getting cooked defensively. At the 3, you're playing Matisse Thybulle or OG Anunoby, which OG's a fantastic ball player, or Buddy Hield, whatever. But whoever you play at that 3 position, that small forward, isn't going to be able to compete with Giannis, with Kevin Durant, with Luka, no matter what. LeBron, your power forward is Tobias, your center is Embiid. That team isn't – that's a 6 seed. That's a 7 seed. So like I said, at the very least, if the relationship isn't fractured and damaged beyond repair, you bring Ben back. Ben just so happens to develop an offensive game that's so good that you don't trade Ben because Ben's a perennial decoy, and now
that's the hope. That's
right. So
everyone's hope.
He comes back and he develops this offensive game where you don't even have to trade him, right? But eventually, Dame is bound to ask out. Eventually, Beal is bound to ask out. One of those two things, based on the recent trends in the NBA, with Harden, with Anthony Davis, they're bound to ask out. And Portland, I mean, they were a little depleted money-wise, but
they haven't done nothing.
They bring in Cody Zeller. They bring in Tony Snell, and they sign Norm Powell to a 5-year, $90 million contract. The Norm contract was great because now if you trade CJ, you have a shooting guard. You don't have to worry. But one of those two are bound to ask out based on the trends in the past 5 years.
You mentioned rumors and not wanting to believe everything you read and see, and I agree with you. But then there's this: Beal and Lillard have done nothing but double down. They aren't moving. And my issue with that is no one, unless, it's fully disgruntled, they're not saying that out in public. They're not going on SportsCenter after a rumor and saying, yeah, I want out, blah, blah. James Harden, the rumors were leaking out about James Harden. I'm staying, blah, blah, blah. He didn't come out and say he wants out of Houston out in public, right? Dame literally said, what's going on right now? As is, we are not good enough. I need change, blah, 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 blah. To your point, Portland has done nothing this offseason. No, they do. Re-sign Norm Powell.
Yeah.
They're not doing anything to help their case to keep Dame. Of course, Dame's not going to come out during the Olympics on SportsCenter and say, yeah, these rumors are true. I'm leaving. I want out of Portland. You need to trade me right now. That's not happening. That's another thing that people aren't, taking into account enough. Beal and Dame are overseas right now. They're focusing on the Olympics.
And here's my last remark, because we're going to get up out of here. But look, Ben is worth a pack of Orbit gum to most of these people. They hate Ben. Ben sucks. Right. Ben can't win. Ben's this, Ben's that. So then why do you think Portland's going to trade you Dame for Ben Simmons? Or why is Washington going to take a Ben-centered package for Bradley Beal? It's because he's a good basketball player, and coaches see it. That's why they vote him in the All-Star game, and that's why he just got voted the anonymous depoy in the coaches poll. Coaches know what Ben brings. Can he work with Embiid? Maybe not. Does Ben need a change of scenery? Probably. But in the time being, the worst thing the Sixers can do is trade Ben for a pack of Orbit gum right now. At the very least, you retain him, you trade him for a better package, and at the very best, you get Dame or Beal. You're the biggest player in those sweepstakes. So it's going to be a waiting game, and free agency has kind of, I guess, reinforced that. But what the Sixers have done in free agency is address the holes that they needed to address, regardless of if Ben was on this team or not. They got a big that's perfect for their system. They got a stretch four that's perfect for their system. 41% Niang on catch and shoots from beyond the arc. He's a fantastic floor spacer. And they've got a player like Tyrese Maxey that they can continue to develop, and hopefully he develops into a nice point guard. But you got to think, Tobias is still here. That's a tradable player and a tradable contract. Joe's still here, due for a max extension. Curry's still here, underpaid. And Ben is here. So if you bring Ben back, he helps. If he doesn't, you trade him for a package that's still going to help you.
Yeah, I'm not buying into Dame's tweets. I don't care that he came in. Him and CJ are joking, saying the rumors that I've seen him defend on Twitter are that he's willing to take a pay cut or like give up some of his bag. That's something he's come to Twitter about with CJ. And then there was a list of teams apparently that was rumored that he'd be interested in going to, and he said something about that. He literally came out publicly after the season, publicly in a microphone, and said that what's going on isn't good enough. We're stuck. I need change, blah, blah, blah. They haven't done that. Okay, so I'm not buying into him defending his thing on Twitter. The last thing I want to say real quick, last question before we wrap up here. You guys buying into anything, in the Dame sweepstakes with Daryl Morey did today?
Oh, yeah, with hiring a lifetime trainer and former Weber State coach in July. Yeah. It's a strategic move. For anybody that thinks Dame is untouchable and Dame can't ask out, you're wrong, because people thought the same about James in Houston. People thought the same about AD. Russell Westbrook was able to make that trade happen like that. So in the player empowerment era, all it takes is a stretch of 10 bad games and one injury or one bad coach. All Dame has to say is, look, I'm up out of here. I'm done. I don't want to play here anymore. So Dame addressing the fake news rumors of late, I love that, because I would do the same if I was in Dame's position. Bro, stop putting words in my mouth. Stop making shit up. But ultimately, Dame can say whatever he wants to say. It's tongue-in-cheek. It's all PR. All it takes is one bad month of basketball in Portland or one bad season in Portland for Dame to one out.
Or for the rest of this summer or for the next 3 weeks to play out and they don't add anybody. Because that's what he wanted, right? He wanted help in Portland. Cody Zeller re-signing Norm Powell, that ain't help in Portland. So what if he gives it another 2 weeks? Yeah, you guys didn't do shit for me. I'm up out of here.
So, Daryl Morey is playing it safe. He's playing it smart right now. They're addressing the holes they needed to address, and because of that, I think the Sixers had a fine offseason. People have FOMO, fear of missing out. So comparatively, did Miami get better? Yes. Did Boston get better? Yes. Did Brooklyn get? Yeah, of course, all these teams added. They added because they had money to spend and they're a popular destination. But Philly's not done. They didn't even get started because either Ben or Tobias is getting traded within the next year. It's going to be one of those two, and I'm sure they're going to make some money so they can give Embiid that supermax. But at this moment, what's today? August what?
August 4th.
August 4th, bro. Go worry about Jalen Hurts. Go enjoy the Eagles season. Go play fantasy football. Leave me in basketball alone for 2 more months. Let me have some peace, and then we can talk about this down the road.
Yes, sir. Gint, Brock, any last words you want to throw out on Ben Simmons, the Sixers offseason, NBA free agency before we wrap up real quick?
None of that, bro. I just want to shout out both of you and DSM Media. I really appreciate you guys and what you guys do. I always love chopping it up with you. You know we're locked in real life, so we're going to make something happen soon.
Yeah, I'm good, too. Thanks for coming on, Brock. It was real, obviously.
You don't got to thank me for that, bro. It's always a pleasure.
Trade Tobias.
Guys, housekeeping before we wrap up. The DSM Media tailgate, August 22nd, 4 p.m. at the link before the Eagles' second open practice. Kenwood Beer is providing free beer for everybody. Pizza and food from Phil Stifel's Pizza Shop. It's making its way down there. We're raffling off a Devontae Smith jersey. Okay. Come hang out with us. Drink some beers, eat some food, join the live show, get interviewed, whatever you want to do. we'll make it happen at the Eagles tailgate. I know we're trying to get Brock to come on out, but that's going to wrap up today's show of the Faithful Fanatics. I'm Dylan, my co-host Matt McGinty, and our special guest Brock. Stay solid. Go Phils. Go Birds. And have a nice night.
1.5 back, right? Phillies 1.5 back?
Yeah, yes, sir. I was going to ask you that. I was just going to ask you if you're a baseball guy. But, guys, have a nice night and stay solid, baby.
Stay solid.